particular class is going to go over how to make a book, give you the bones of it, and then if you want to make something bigger later, you positively absolutely can. I brought a couple of examples with me. This is the book that we made in the other class that I taught. It is just a bare bones book. There's nothing fancy about it, but you can take what you learn in this class to make this, and you can make something like this. This is my, basically my, this is how I keep track of my apprenti. And I'm going to say apprenti because I have 4 of them. And it's a lot easier to keep track of people in a book than it is to try to keep it in your head, because I'm not good at that. But learning in this class will allow you to eventually make something like this. This is a hardback, I think it's 14 by 12 book.
That's pretty.
And it's 200 plus pages. We was talking about that earlier. And you can put pretty much anything in it that you want once you get to that point. So this class will allow you to make something like this, but the basics are all the same. You're just going up in size. So don't be intimidated by something this big. It's very attainable. It's very easy to do. Now we're going to go over the materials that you're going to need to do this class. And it's very, very simple as well. I think the only thing you can't get perfect is this. This is just a sketchbook. Very simple sketchbook. It's not anything fancy. This is a 9 by 12. You don't necessarily have to use this, but I like to use it at least this big because it gives you book size that you can actually write on and not have to worry about those little bitty pieces. The next thing that you're going to need is a bone smoother, which is what this is, or just a plain old pencil, nothing fancy, or a chopstick, doesn't matter, take your pick. You're going to need a sharpened pencil. You're going to need a yarn darner needle, and I don't know if you can see that from here. It's the longer sharps needle. You can get those in the embroidery section, but they're called yarn darners. Very easy. I think it's $1.95 for a packet of like 8 of them. You're going to need some heavyweight thread, which is what this is. This is linen thread. This is bookbinding thread, but you can use any heavyweight thread that you have. If you get the machine thread, get the jeans thread. It's labeled as jeans, or something along that line. I use Gutermann. You can use the Coats, regular thread, whatever. You just need a heavy duty thread that's not going to break on you. Then you're going to get scissors, waka waka, and then you're going to get a ruler. 12-inch ruler is fine. I just find if you're going to be doing multiple things, having a larger ruler is a little easier to deal with because then you can do a 2 for it. This is an 18-inch that has both inches and standard and as well as metric, which comes in handy if you're neurotic like I am. Then you're going to get glue. This is the Elmer School glue. PVA glue, which is polyvinyl acetate, if you were wondering, is regular white glue. It's not acidic. So keep in mind, like if you're making a book, you want acid-free anything, because the longer that book sits, the acid will actually start eating itself. So you want to make sure that you have a PVA glue, it's acetate, not acid, that is going to work fine. Elmer School glue, the regular white glue for just down and dirty projects, works just fine because I'm fairly confident it's going to still outlast all of us in our dotage. So don't feel afraid to, like if you have some other kind of glue, I would not recommend Gorilla Glue. We have seen on the internet what happened with that. We don't want to go there. So I suggest just plain old regular Elmer School glue or the generic version that you can get at the Dollar Tree. It's actually in the dining room. We're not going to talk about that right now because that's like really messy. You're going to want 2 types of heavy paper. And let me show you. If you don't have this type of heavy paper, you don't have to have it. This is cardstock. And you can kind of hear it. It's that thicker paper. If you do not have this, use cardboard. You can get the heavy cardboard out of a box and use it just fine. It works perfectly. If you don't have this, you can put 2 or 3 of the sketch pages together and you can use that doubled up, and that'll make your top and back of your book. And then you're going to have the interior paper. This is the paper that's left over from the big book that I made. It's like not even a poster board paper. It's just like a heavy cloth paper. Whatever decorated paper you can find will work just fine. You don't even have to use decorated paper. You can use just plain paper bags. I have done that before. So that's thickness. The paper bag thickness is the thickness that you want for the interior of the book. And then after you do that, you're going to want leather of some type or heavy paper, again, depending on what type of book you're making. And that's my supper, so please disregard. This is a very lightweight, it's like upholstery weight leather. This is what was on the big book that I showed you. You can get a heavier weight leather, which is what this book has on it. And you can use that for the entire casement of the book. So if you don't have leather, you don't have to have it. You can use, again, paper bags, if that's what you want to go with. You can even make your own paper and decorate it and put it on the outside. It really doesn't matter. Poster board goes really well on the outside if you don't have something else that you want to put on there. It's really a personal choice. It just depends on what you want. So if you don't have any of these materials, there are always substitutes that you can use. So please experiment. Go out there and let me know the craziest thing you have ever used to make any of the stuff that we're making right now, because I would love to hear that. I think that's awesome.
Can you use fabric?
Yep, absolutely can use fabric, and it is period. There are several excellent examples of where people had parchment or vellum and they had a hole in it, so they actually embroidered the hole and then reused the vellum so that they didn't miss the hole. I have a bibliography for the bookbinding class, and I think I have like just crazy anecdote type stuff, like using the embroidery to cover a hole. So please hit me up for it. I'll be more than happy to share it with you. But now we're going to go ahead and get started. So if everybody's got their paper, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull your paper out, which I have already done. So just tear them out. Most of these sketchbooks have this perforation in them, like this. So it's easier to just tear it out. And then once you tear it out, you're going to want to pull the perforation off after you fold it, like so. That gives you a standard sheet, which is what we've got right here. Now, I will tell you, if you're planning on having lines in your book that you can write on, which if you look here, I've already done this page. You're going to want to leave at least a ½ inch from the folded edge. In fact, let me just do it this way so it makes sense. I've already erased some of this. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up just a little bit. A couple of other extra things that you might want while you're making this book. You don't have to have them. They are not necessary, but you're probably going to want them anyway. Is a hammer or a mallet of some type. You're going to want a piece of leather or something that you can take and help pound this down, especially if you don't have a book press. A white eraser. As you can tell, this is a nasty, dirty eraser. I've had it for years, but this is a generic white eraser, and it takes graphite, which is the 2B pencils that everybody uses. This erases that perfectly. You don't end up with lines or anything like a shadow after you take it off. So you might want to have this if you're going to put lines in your book to erase them afterwards. As you can tell, I don't know, can you see this line right here? So this eraser will literally take it off to nothing. These are really handy to have. They have them at the Dollar Tree. They have them at pretty much any store that has a stationery or an office section. And they're just the generic white erasers. So if you can get one of these, fabulous. If you can't, you can still make do. I don't use these erasers on the back of the pencils because the pink erasers, sometimes they get hard and they will leave a stain on your paper. If you don't want a stain there, it's really bad. So best thing you could probably invest in is going to be just a plain white eraser. I know it's not white anymore, but that's because it has lived with me long enough to be dirty and dingy like my soul. And the next thing you're going to need, like the jute. This is a dollar store, Dollar Tree bag of jute. Jute is all natural. Hemp cord works too. It's something that's really handy that's going to help you out. If you don't have a book press, a regular hammer will work just fine, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pound the edge, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So other than that, I think that was the worst of it. Now back to your regularly programmed venue. Once you get as many pieces out that you're going to want, I would suggest you go with an even number of pages. It's easier. And then keep in mind, because we're folding this in half, you're doubling those pages. So for instance, if you get 20 of these pages like this, you will end up with 40 folded pages. Another thing to keep in mind is if you want lines on your book, it is much, much easier to draw the lines prior to putting them in the book than it is to try to go back after you make your book and draw the lines. So if you're going to line the book so you can do calligraphy or whatever in it, like what I've done in the beginning of this, you're definitely going to want to put the lines in there before you do anything else. And that's its own thing. I use a 1/2 inch as my rule of thumb for my lines because I like to be able to see what I write. Whatever length or width of the lines that you want, do that. It's not a hard, fast rule. It is personal preference. Also remember that when you do a book page and you're lining it, don't number it automatically, because if you notice here, this is page 2. That's page 7. Your pages are not going to be side by side because we're going to be putting them in what's called a signature, and that is a cache of folded pages together. Okay, so I would recommend you line your pages if you're going to line them, but do not number your pages until you know exactly how many pages you want in the book that you're making. Okay, so having said that, we will take some time and chitty chat and gossip and do all the crazy stuff. I'm going to move all this to the side. And now's the time to start pulling out your pages and start getting the chads also off with the perforation. If anybody's got any questions, probably now would be the time to ask them, because we're going to be hands busy, but not necessarily mouth busy over the next, say, 5 to 10 minutes. Bueller. Bueller. Come on, guys, you're leaving me hanging here.
Not on purpose, just busy.
I'm doing this because I can't talk and do anything else at the same time because I have to have my hands to talk. So somebody needs to take up my slack.
So the question I have, if my leather isn't super wide, can I then cut my half pieces in half again to make a smaller book and do the same thing?
Absolutely. There's nothing that limits the size of your book short of the size of the paper that you use and your imagination.
Awesome.
In fact, the big book that I showed you earlier, the ginormous book,
Oh, that's gorgeous.
actually probably another 8 inches because it was a full sketch pad that I took out, but I didn't want that big of a book. So I cut off about 8 inches off the bottom. So it was like 14 inches wide and 8 inches wide. And I've used that for like scrap paper, but I also made like a little notebook out of it. So you can even use your scraps if you cut it off and you're making something smaller. You're not limited. You're only limited by what you think you can futz with. And I said FUTZ, so that doesn't need to be like censored, just saying.
What? I'm not supposed to censor that?
You are the boss. You censor what you want. Sometimes you end up getting some of these sketchbooks that do not have the perforations. If that's the case, let me show you real quick what you can do. So pretend this is not perforated. It's going to be a little bit more work, but it is what it is. What you're going to want to do is you're going to take your ruler. You're going to put your ruler up against here. And then you'll take your pencil and whatever that width is that you end up doing, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to make a line with your ruler. And then once you make it with your ruler, if you don't have perforation, then you're going to take your scissors and you're literally just going to follow your line so that you don't have the chads on the end and it's even on this side. Just please make sure that if you're going to do that, there's nothing wrong with it, that you do all of them the same width. So for instance, if I did this one and I had another sheet, you're going to want to square up the sides on one side, and you see how this is over right here? Can you see that? Do I need to make it closer? You would make sure that they're all the same width, and then you would cut that off so that they are even. So if you do that prior to, like if it doesn't have the perforation, if you do that prior to and make sure all of them are even before you start with anything else, it's going to save tons of time for you and aggravation. So just letting you know, that's something that you can do right here is if you don't have the perforations, you can cut them out yourself. Luckily, I'm lazy and I make sure stuff has perforations before I buy it because I don't want that extra grievance. So we're going to go for, let's say, another 5 minutes. And Wolfston, I'm going to let you be the timer on this because I gab and I don't pay attention. If you will let us know when 5 minutes are up, that's when we will stop this portion of it and go to the next step.
All right, we've got you marked.
So how about those Saints?
Hey. I'll leave that one alone.
Look, I might be in Memphis, but I am a Louisiana girl. So I was a Saint when they were the Aints.
Yeah, those were shameful
Anybody got any
years for
questions?
Archie Manning. He should have had a better team around him.
We've won a Super Bowl. I'm good. Like anything after this is lanyard. So.
Oh, you guys will get another one. That's too good a coach.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't put any
funny part
bounties
about
out
the
of it.
coaches, there's only a few of us that actually understand what he's saying.
So who is going to be your quarterback next year?
I don't know. I'm like so depressed after Breeze. I understand why he's retiring. I get it. I do.
It's time.
But at the same time, it hurts my heart because, like, you know, I was there when Pokey Gaijon was there and when Manning was there and like all the other ones. but still. It hurts us, Precious. It hurts us.
Hey, you don't have to watch the Falcons play every week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that to y'all.
No,
Why
that's our burden.
it's at least it's not the pitiful, pathetic pussycats. Detroit.
You have a point. Does anybody have any questions so far? 23, 42, meaning of life, anything?
Almost there.
How are we looking on time?
You still got 2 minutes.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes. It's 8:03, so you've gone 2 minutes so far. You're fine.
I would tell you that if you do have preparations, I like doing all of one step at one time and then going to the next step. So if you know how many pages you're going to do, go ahead and tear all those pages out and then spend the time to tear all of the perforations off the pages. Only because if you do one at a time, it's going to get annoying and you're going to get irritated, and then you're going to put it up and you're going to say, I'm not doing this right now. So project experience tells me that if you do all of one step and then go to the next step, you're much more likely to finish said project. This coming from the person that has projects 20 plus years old in my closet upstairs.
I never fish anything out of my armor shop that's more than 20 years old, do I? Never done that.
I'm not even looking at you right now to like admit that. I'm not, nope. How about those things?
I was wearing armor in the crown I finally won that was older than my opponent.
I remember the days of stealing stop signs, and I got to be real good friends with somebody in the Louisiana Department of Transportation so that I wouldn't be illegal.
Oh, God.
Yep. You heard it from me.
Got rid of one of those that was turned into queases a couple months ago.
Oh, and let's not forget the pickle barrels. You can't forget the pickle barrels.
Oh, they're still there. They still use them.
Carpet's a good one too.
That I don't see much anymore, and I kind of miss that.
I don't, because we live in the South and it's hot and I don't like to sweat. I prefer to call myself a woman of heroic girth, and me and heat don't get along. Okay. Now, let's pretend we've done as many pages as we're all going to do.
Yep.
The reason you do the pages like this is that whatever size you get, and it might be a 20 by 24, it might be whatever. The big book that I did, it took 3 sketchbooks worth of paper to do the 200 pages that I was doing, and I had to pull them all out. Now, at this point, if you want to make your book look aged rather than the stark white, and let me show you what that looks like so that you have an idea. So, and lines, see the lines? See how much whiter this is than this?
Wow.
If you're planning on aging your book and you want the pages to be like old looking, you can use either tea or coffee. The secret is when you make that coffee solution, you make a pot of coffee just like you drink it, okay? You take that pot of coffee, you need to add 2 to 4, depending on how strong you like your coffee. If you like your spoon to stand up in your coffee, then you probably need 4. If you like weak coffee, you probably need 1 to 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And the reason being is because coffee and tea are acidic. And you don't want anything with acid going in your book because, again, remember, no acid means it lasts longer. You're going to put that solution together, and then you're going to take your pages and you're going to dip them in, leave them in for however long, however dark you want it. Like the longer you leave it in, the darker it's going to get. Also remember, the darker it gets, the more soft the page is going to get. So you're going to have to be real careful the way you take it out. You can dry those pages one of two ways. I used my driveway and laid everything out on my driveway, let the sun do it, and then flipped it and let the sun do it. And then once they were all done, I took them inside, and then I did what we're fixing to do for the next step. If you don't have that kind of time, or you're really vigilant, I'm not. I know myself, I'm all about like squirrel, so I don't put the oven on. But if you want to do them in the oven, you put it at 200 to 250 degrees. You lay them out on a sheet pan for 5 to 7 minutes. You have to watch it though, because depending on the type of oven you have, it could be warmer or cooler. I would not do that in a gas oven. I'd only do that in an electric oven. That's my recommendation. If you're more vigilant than I am, by all means, use your gas oven, but I find the sun makes it a little bit better. Once you get them all done, they're going to be all wrinkly and they're going to be like puckered up and they're going to be going all directions. Put your iron on the highest setting, no steam. And all you have to do is iron them flat, and they will be perfect just like they came out of the sketchbook. And that's how you prep them for the next step if you want aged, because like I said, it makes a big difference. I only left mine in the water for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and you can see the difference between the two. Some people like to, and another thing is once you have them on the ironing board, the longer you leave the iron on them, you will end up with scorch marks. So if you want to age it even more, leave the iron on a little bit more, and you'll end up with those darker spots on there, kind of splotchy like. It's really cool. We're not dealing with heat right now, so just saying. Just a suggestion. All right, so now everybody should have their pieces pulled out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take each individual piece. We are going to line up the edges as perfectly as we can, and then hold them on the fold right here where the two pieces are together. This is the fold right here. I'm going to use a pencil just to show you the difference. There is no difference. You're going to take from the two pieces and you're going to slide toward the fold. Once you get the fold in there, you're going to go over the fold with either the pencil or the bone or chopstick or whatever it is that you have. And you're going to fold your pages in half. Okay? Now notice that's like a really crisp fold, and that's what you want. You want that fold to be as crisp as you can make it. And we're going to rinse, lather, and repeat, or lather, rinse, repeat with every single page you just pulled out. If you're not comfortable using the pencil at first, you can take your fingers, start it, and then you're going to go back. This is why you have to be careful using a pencil. It will leave a mark if you're not careful along the edge, depending on the type of pencil that you have. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also keep in mind you're going to end up with a 1/2 inch space from that fold. So most of this is going to be covered by the binding and you're not going to see it at all. But if you want to really make sure that your book is not messed up, you're going to really be aware of that when you're doing it. So since it took us 5 minutes to do the other part, Wolfston, if you will do 5 more minutes so that we can fold all of our pieces.
Absolutely.
And I'm not doing silence again, so somebody better start talking or I'm going to start talking, and y'all are going to hear stuff you really don't want to hear. Just saying.
Has anybody listened to any of the Bardic War items?
Are kicking tail.
I know Meridies has a few people.
They did one of my apprentices, apprenti, was in the group Bardic today that
Cool.
just, so y'all should give that a listen if you haven't heard it yet, because it's amazing. I feel like we should, do Red Rover or something. Tag somebody. I don't know. I call this busy work.
Yeah. Or if we were stitching, we'd be bitching.
I bitch all the time. I don't need stitches for that.
Oops.
Y'all are awfully quiet for being a group. Are y'all always this quiet, or is it just me?
Well.
They
I'm
muted.
always just quiet.
They're muted.
Does anybody have any questions so far? Does everything make sense?
Mhm.
Is it rational? Do you grok it?
No. Come on, Rohit. You gotta have some questions.
I'm good.
No? Okay.
I'm just going along. I'm good.
Yep, we're rolling along.
Usually
I've got a
by
cat
this
on my
time, like,
desk
we're
that's
talking
helping me
about
follow
what
the
we did
pages.
yesterday.
And I think we're stacking these on top of each other, yes?
No, actually not.
Okay,
I'll show you.
all righty.
But
That's
we're
the
gonna
next
give
step.
everybody a chance. I've done this more than y'all have, so I'm done. But we're gonna give you the time you need. Do not rush.
Not Russian.
That gives me a chance to drink my cocktail and eat my supper. So
Your yummy Swedish meatballs.
oh, they're delish. But he put them on rice. I don't do rice because I'm an adult. I don't have to, but it still tastes good, even though it's rice. That's how you can tell you really love somebody.
I do remember your husband.
Uh-oh. I got to do one more, y'all. I'm on an odd number and it's wigging me out.
Uh-oh.
All right. Who can tell a joke by the time I get this done?
You know what? I have an odd number too, so I gotta pull two.
Yeah, no. My CDO does not allow me to have odd numbers. Whew. All right. Eh. Now, just to let everybody know, I'm doing 16 of these, 16 separate pages. Or no, hang on, let me count. See, I'm not good at this. I don't even understand why I'm doing this. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm doing 2 more pages so that we have 16 folds. So you should have 16 pieces of paper that have been folded in half. And 16 plus 16 makes what?
32.
32. So we're going to end up with 32 individual pages. And this is
Either.
this is going to make sense in just a second because this is the next step. How are we looking on time, Wolfson?
Oh, I think you're muted.
Day 17. Day 17. It's time.
Okay.
But you're confusing us with this math. 16 plus 16.
Even
I look at
numbers
1,
are
4,
even
5, and I
numbers.
look in the field, it's many.
Just even numbers is the magic, and this is going to be why you do this. And let me know when everybody's ready.
All right.
Like put a thumbs up or something, or googly eyes, or I don't care. Perfect. Okay. So the reason you do individual, like separate, even pages, like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I now have 16 folded pages. And the reason you need an even number is because we're going to take 4 each. So 4, 4, 4, and 4. So you should have 4 piles of 4 folded pages each, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And what you're going to do is you're going to put them in each other at the fold. Now we have 4 pages, one inside the other. This is called a signature. Okay?
What?
A signature.
Signature. Okay.
That is what you have when you put an even number of pages together and you have one solid page on the outside. But if you open it up, you have 1, not left-handed, 2, 3, 4, then you have the center, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so they're one inside the other, but when you fold them, you have one spine. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so you've done one signature of 4. Now you need to make sure that all the other ones are done the same way. So you're going to take one and put each of the other ones on the inside of it so that they line up with their spine. So if you're looking at it from the side and you're looking at the whole page where they were folded, they're all at the same spot in the spine.
5 minutes left.
Fold them, you have one spine on the outside, but you have 8 pages. That's the reason that even is important. So make sure you make even numbers because doing the odds will mess your head up. That and it's not CDO because OCD is not in alphabetical order, if you were wondering. So make sure you do all your other ones. Get all of your sets together. When you're done, you should have 4 signatures of 4. Whenever you're counting the number of pages in your signature, you go by how many folded pages you have. So in other words, this is not a signature of 8. This is a signature of 4 because you have 4 sheets in it. Okay? And by doing the even numbers, we now have 4 signatures to make our book. But those 4 signatures now have 32 pages. Does that make sense? Is there any question about that? Because that's kind of the trickiest part of this whole thing.
It's almost over.
Charmaine, tell my bestie I said, hey. If you're wondering, Virgil is my bestie. And I'll tell you the story when we're doing the next project because it's really, really cool. So now you have 4 signatures of 4, right? What we're going to do now is we're going to use our tape or our ruler. Where did I put it? Oh, there you are. Now, this particular project that we're doing is 9 inches. You're going to want at least 4 holes in each set of signatures so that you can sew them together. Okay? I'm not going to do math. I'll tell you what I do because I'm lazy. And can all of you see my ruler? Good enough. Okay. So the two most important parts are the center, which for 9 inches is 4.5. So I put a mark right there. Is that, do you see that? Thumbs up. Do I need to put that a little closer? Let's see if I can do that. Let's see. Come on, Gertrude. Do not look at the empty. There we go. Is that better?
Yep.
It's a little bit better now? Okay.
Mhm.
So this is 9 inches. So you're going to do the center first, right? The center for this, because it's 9 inches, is 4.5. Whatever size you're going with, remember, do the center first. Then what I normally do is I go 1 inch from each end. You with me so far? Thumbs up.
Uh-huh.
All right. And then I eyeball the other one, which the other one's probably going to be about 6 1/4 for me and 2 1/4. But you do what you do, you boo. The center and the outside edges are the most important. So you have to, at minimum, have 3 lines on your signatures, minimum. Now, if you see all the fancy schmancy books, you'll see like 5 lines and stuff like that, like on the spine of them, because that's what we're about to do. We're going to sew them together and we're going to put the spine together.
How far away from the edge should we be?
At least 1 inch.
Okay.
So make sure you get the center first, which is right here. And then you go 1 inch in
Right.
from both edges. And then actually, this should not be, this should actually be 2.5. I can eyeball stuff and see what the center is. Some people can't.
Right.
I don't math well. So this is literally the center of these two, and this is the center of these two. It might be off by a little bit, but nobody's going to be looking at the spine of your book. And if they are, if they don't have a personal space pass, send them to me and I will handle them, because only people with personal space passes get in your personal space. Okay.
Gotcha.
So I now have 5 lines. Can y'all see that right there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Now, make sure all your pieces are together like this. And you're going to take and look at where your line is, and you are going to mark the spine of each signature. I've done these 3. Now I'm doing these 2. Going across from the line you marked on the first one through
Advantage is yours.
through until you have that line going all the way across on each of the signatures. Can you see that? Do I need to put it in a better spot? Can you see where those lines are? You basically, these, you stood it up and you marked it going back on each spine.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep.
Let me know when everybody has theirs done. Just do a thumbs up. That way I can see it. Nodding your head, Reese, does not count. I'm messing with you. I'm just picking on you. I will not pick on you if it's a problem. Okay, so now you have your line on all of your spines of all of your signatures. Everybody should have 4 signatures, and you should have at least 3, probably 5 sets of lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You with me?
Yep.
Where's the thumbs up? I'm not feeling love here, people. Okay, so once you've got all of them marked, you're going to open them up like this here. You can take an awl or a needle. You can get a bigger needle if you need a bigger needle, and you're going to hold it, and at that center spot, you are literally just going to put a hole through all of the pages in that signature at that spot.
Okay.
Okay. And all you have to do, you see how I'm like just wallowing it out? I don't know any other better way to put that. When you take it out, you can see that hole and it goes all the way through. Oops.
How large? Like 1/8 of an inch or so?
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you have an awl, use an awl and put it on a cutting board, put it on that spot and bang it. If you have a hole punch, you can do that. I will tell you the other thing you can do is put them all together at that spot. And if you have a hacksaw and you're doing a lot of them because you're making a bigger book, you can put them together, like put a little vise on them to keep them in place like a clamp. And then you can take the hacksaw and just saw in at that spot on each one of those lines, and it goes through all the pages at one time. I don't do that.
Okay, I got you.
But if you're doing something big, you know, work smart, not hard, you can do that on each one of these. If you have an X-Acto knife and you're not clumsy like I am, you can use an X-Acto knife and cut on those lines, as long as each one of the sets of spines that you started with has it all the way through every single page in that signature. Okay. So because we did the one, I'm just going to go ahead and continue and do this one. And like I said, keep in mind that this needle and the thread that we have are going to be going through these holes. So you want to make sure to make it as easy on yourself as you can, because you're basically pre-drilling the holes before you use them. So now, do not stress out. If you look at mine, not all of them are right on that crease. Some of them are a little bit off. Whenever you've got these going together like this and you've got one folding inside the other one, it offsets them on that spine. So don't freak out if a couple of yours are not perfect and they're not all on every single one of the spines. The only way you can get them on every single one of the spines is with a book shave, and I don't have that, so we're doing the down and dirty. Okay. You're going to want to do this after you get the holes. See, I got 5 holes. Those were my original marks. That's one signature. You're going to want to do the same thing on all the other signatures. Now, little heads up, because I have done this before. When you're opening your signatures up to get to the center of the spine, make sure you're actually in the center and you haven't just folded it over like this, because then you're missing one, right? So this is also why having an even number helps, because you know how many sides they're supposed to be and you can count. If you don't have 4 on one side, you know that you don't have all the folds together before you do. So here's the folds, right? Here's the marks. They're very, very faint on this one. See where the marks are, where I took it and I slid it across from the other one. So you're going to do the same thing to the next one. You're going to take your needle. You're going to go in, waller it around, and waller is a thing in South, you know, in the South. Everybody knows what a waller is. Or if you don't, come to Louisiana and I'll tell you. And you're going to do that on every single one of the marks that you have, going from the outside to the inside, so that it'll make it easier when we start sewing these together, which is about what we're fixing to do. You have a guided hole to go with, and it's not going to be so complicated. So there's our 5. That's the spine. You can see a little mark barely where I did it. So that's the second set of signatures. We got 2 more sets of signatures to do this on. And like I said, make sure you get them all together and do the same thing Find the hole, waller it out. Any questions?
Not
I'm
this
start
time.
picking on people if y'all don't start talking. Is anybody having any trouble so far as
Nope.
like everything lined up or making sense of my craziness?
Nope, everything's making sense. At least for me.
Remember, I can't hear y'all, and if you're going to be on mute, that's fine, but you need to give me hand signal. And just to let you know, this is the extra class you get with this in ASL, American Sign Language. This is I'm judging you, as in like evaluating you because you're doing something or a test or something like that. That is, I am judging you for your poor choices in fashion or friends. So remember, I'm judging you. I'm judging you. Luckily, I'm just judging you. One of the big things to make sure of when you're putting your, like if you're turning it around, I have a set of pink clips that I normally use for this. Also got those from the Dollar Tree to hold these together so that they don't shift when you're trying to put the hole in, so the hole stays aligned on each one of them. I did not bring any in here. I apologize for that. We're just going to make do. So by now, you should have 4 signatures, and all of them have a hole in approximately the same spot. Are we good with that?
Yep.
See, you're learning. I love this. It's awesome. Okay, so now that we have them all pretty much aligned, look at them from the top and make sure that all the holes are pretty much in the same spot. They're going to be off. They're going to be deviated just a tad. Do not freak out about that. We are eyeballing this at most, so it's not like it's a bad thing. But if you noticed, and I'll show you on mine, mine are not exactly at center. Whoops. Mine are not exactly at center. It's off, and I can tell that it's off. But if I turn it, they're aligned. Okay. So
Yep.
that's why it's really important for you to pay attention, like when you're doing the holes or you're doing the marks. If you don't get it exactly even, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you eyeball the spines to make sure that they're all in about the same spot. They're not going to be exactly in the same spot. So here we now have, I have 5. I don't know how many you have. We have the center. We have 1 inch in from the center, and then we have eyeballed center between those 2. We there?
Yep.
All right, now comes the fun part. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, so you are going to get a length of thread on your needle. I just happen to have mine on there already because I just stick it in my thread.
Does it match length?
Well, you don't want anything longer than your forearm, and the reason being is because if you are spending time doing this because the thread's so long, you're going to tire out real quickly rather than actually working within that scope that you've got right here. So you can double it, you know, where you have your whole thing should never be longer than from your chin to your outstretched hand like this.
Okay, that just feels wrong.
And
I
let me
always
tell you
work with,
why.
like, 2 yards.
Yeah, no. Even doing embroidery, which I'll be giving a class on that later this month or next month, you should never have a piece that's longer than from your chin to your outstretched hand, because you know what? If you double it, it's half that, which means you're doing this and you're staying in your scope of work.
Yep.
If you're doing this, your arm, you're going to have like muscles like this or flabby bits like this, but your arm's going to tire out and you're not going to have your project done because you're wore out from doing this number instead of actually working on your piece. Okay.
Okay,
So
studied.
yeah, see, and if you look at mine, it's exactly half. I call this the lead. I call this the tail. Knot goes in the tail. That's standard rule of thumb for me. Okay. We're not putting a knot in this just yet. I'll show you why. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get our first signature like this. We are going to go through all the pages from the interior, from the fold, from the inside to what we call now the outside, okay? When you do that, you're going to leave about 3 inches, give or take, okay? You with me so far?
Yep.
See, y'all are learning science and make me so proud. Okay, so we've gone from the one end. Pick an end. If you're left-handed, go from the left. If you're right-handed, go from the right. Doesn't matter. We're going to go in this next hole from the outside, and that's what we're going to call the outside of the spine now. The fold on the inside is called the inside. Okay, so when I say outside, I mean the exterior of the spine. When I say inside, I mean where the interior of the fold is. Okay?
Yep.
So we're going to go and you're going to pull, and mine's got a little bit of glue on it, but you're going to pull it to where it's like this. All right? You came out this one, you went in this one. Now this is what the inside of your book looks like. You have your thread, and then you have the tail that you have not knotted. All right?
Yep.
Now, this is the only time you're going to have to do this unless you run out of thread. You're going to hold this, wrap around it, like so, and then go under the line, back through the hole, and that's how you're going to make your knot. Okay, does that make sense? Do you want me to do it again?
One more time.
Okay, so this was where the line was coming out right here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is your tail. That was the very, very end of your fat thread that you left on the inside.
Yeah.
You come over, you're going to go under. See here, this is the loop right here. You're going to go under, and then you're going to go through the loop, just like when you make a knot on your tail. Just like that. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with your thread back over in the first hole, and you're going to end up with a tail this long, probably about 2 to 3 inches. Okay, that's where you started. You came back over here.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Now, what you're going to do is you're going to go back through the hole that you made,
The first one?
the very first one on the edge, just like this. This is on the outside. This is the fold. Exterior fold, going from the inside, back out the outside from the very first hole. Right?
Yep.
Then we're going to go through the second hole, just like we did. You with me?
Yep.
So now we should have 2 lines here on the exterior,
Right.
and we have the 1 line. Come on, Gertrude. Ah, I know what happened. I have glue on my thread. Probably shouldn't do it, but I'm lazy, so. There we go. Here's the tail from the original, right here. And this is the line we initially made, and now we're right here. Okay?
Yep.
You're going to do the same exact thing. If you think of this as the clock, face of a clock, analog clock, noon, 3, 6, 9. Okay? You are going to take your thread, you're going to put it to noon. You got that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yep.
going to go under the line you just made up through so that you're on top of that thread. And you're actually just going to pull a knot right there, just like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, if you make your knot the other way, then put your thread at noon, come around this way underneath that initial spine thread that you made, and make your knot that way. Okay? We've made our knot. Ooh, and it's ugly. Is it ugly? Good googa mooga. Oh, yes. Okay. So
Are we
y'all stay
putting
there.
a knot in each, for each time we go in to the inside, we're putting a new knot?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes,
That's only on the first signature. And in a second,
Yeah.
that's going to make sense. I'm getting
Okay.
another piece of thread because I had glue on the other one and it stopped me from doing what I wanted to do. So give me just a second. If you guys want to get ahead of me and finish your, I'm going to do it one more time. So this is the outside of the spine, right? If it's folded, this is the outside. You pull till it's about 2 to 3 inches of tail. Leave it there. Come on, Gertrude. You pull it in the second hole, like so. You hold the tail at noon. Here's the one that came out the second hole right here. Can y'all see that? Do it like this. You go under. And you're going to come back through this loop that it makes right here. Okay? That's what makes your first knot in the first hole and leaving your tail. Did you get that? Was that
Yep.
close enough that y'all could see it?
yep,
I do mine twice because knots. So now I have a double knot right here, or a square knot. If you know what a square knot is, do a square knot at that first hole. Then I'm going to go through the first hole, come out to the inside of the second hole, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to hold it at 12 o'clock. I'm going to go underneath the first string, and then I'm going to pull the knot right here on the second one, just like what we just did. You're going to do one more. Again, 12 o'clock. Now you have 2 knots in this hole on the inside of your signature. Okay? Everybody with me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, now that we've got the knots on that side, you're going to go back through from the inside to the outside. So it should look like this. Right? Pull it out. You're going to do the same exact thing you just did. You're going to pull it through here. You're going to come back to the second one. You're going to put it under the line, like so. And then you're going to make a knot at the second join. Come on. Like so. Just like you did with the first one. So you came in, came out here, knotted, went back in, knotted here. Came out here, came in here, knotted here. You're going to go back out and then come back and put a knot here. This first one is the most important because once you get your knots established, you can go and you can start adding your signatures to each other. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so we've got 2 knots here. Now we have 4 knots here because we had the 2 knots originally, came through here, came back over here, did another 2 knots. So now you're going to go back through to the exterior. Notice the 1 string. You're going to come back through to the interior. 12 o'clock, your line, come up through it. Knot. 12 o'clock, go underneath, on top of your noon, hold it. And if you have to hold tension, you have to hold tension until you have 2 knots. And now we're here in the middle. Does that make sense? And from what I understand, Wolfston is recording this. So at any point, once he posts it, if it doesn't make sense, you should be able to come back to this and see in real time what it's supposed to look like. All right. So now that we've done this knot, we're going to go back through to the outside from the center. Okay. So you have 2 threads, hole, 2 threads, hole. That's where we're at right now. You with me?
Yep.
All right. Hole number 4. You go down from the outside back to the inside. Just like we just did, you're going to go back up through here. Hold it at noon. Go back up through. Your needle's always going to be over the thread at noon, if that helps. You make the first knot, you do the same thing again. Go under the line, over noon. So the line at 3 o'clock, you're going to go under it. The line at 12 o'clock, you're going to go over it. That's how you make your knot. Okay? So now we have a knot here. We have 2 knots here, actually. And now we go back through that hole. Come on. Through the center, because we've got the first thread. That's what we just did. Okay. I'm going to come back up. Go back down through this one from the outside to the inside. 12 o'clock. Right here. 3 o'clock right here. Under 3 o'clock. Over 12 o'clock. Hold it tight. And if you notice, that's the loop that's going to make the knot. All right. I'm going to do it again. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, over 12 o'clock. Hold it there. I usually take my thumb to hold the tension until the knot's made. Don't pull it too tight because it will tear your paper. That's the trick, is getting the tension right between making the knot, but at the same time not having a gap. Right? So now we've had 2 sets of knots, or 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of knots. We're going to go back through the hole that we came in on the outside. Notice here, 2, 2, 2. Right? So we're back to the outside where it's folded. And we're going to do the same thing for the very last hole. You come in like this, under 3 o'clock, over 12 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, over 12 o'clock. That sets the knot here. Is everybody with me?
About the way.
Okay. Now, this is the last hole on this signature. We're on the outside, or actually we're on the inside. That's the outside. We're on the inside. We're going to go through that hole here. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the last hole on this signature. You're going to go in, then back through this hole, last hole. Notice it's the same as the other ones. Same thing, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, over 12 o'clock. Once you have the loop, see the loop right here? Put your thumb on it and pull it until it makes the knot. That way you keep the knot right up against the paper and you don't have to worry about the knot being way out and having a lot of slack like I did the first time because I had glue on my thread. Okay? We're going to do it again. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, over 12 o'clock. Just like that. And there's the loop. That's where the knot's going to be. I put my thumb over the knot and pull it till there's no slack. And it makes the knot flush with the paper without pulling through the paper. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All right. Are we ready?
I think so.
I think so.
Back through this first knot or this first hole. So we'll have 2, 2, 2, and 2. That's what we just did. There's 2 on the outside. There's 1 on the first signature inside. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
You get extra points, Reese, because you said thumbs up. All right. Now, so far we've been working from right to left. We're going to continue working right to left if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, then you've done this from left to right. And we're going to continue working from left to right. You know that whole work smarter, not harder thing that I had said earlier? We're still there. So from here, what you're going to do is you're going to flip it so that your needle's back on the right side or left side if you're left-handed, like this. You're going to take your next signature. You're going to put it right on top of this signature, just like this. If you have to hold it down, do it like this. Again, also make sure that your holes line up. See, like I had this one and it was offset just a little bit, so I knew I had it backwards. So get your signature, line up your holes, right? And you're going to come from the outside here, and then you're going to go inside, from the outside to the inside of your next signature, holding it flush, like so. And I just lost my thread, so I'm going to rethread it. Maybe. Okay. So I'm pulling this loose so that you can see it. This is the outer signature. This is the first signature. And I know I probably chose a bad color of thread. This is from the first one. We went from right to left, right? And then we flipped it, matched up the holes, went inside all the holes. Again, this is really important to make sure you get through the spine of all of them, not just like 3 of them. Count your pages. When you do this, you're going to go from here back through to here. So So here's your first signature. This is your second signature. Okay. So you're going to pull it until it's, you want to get all the tension out of it, but not tear your paper. So be careful. You want to make sure you don't have any slack here. You're going to come back through this one. Okay. Now, here's where it gets fun. Can y'all see this? This is the first signature. This is the one we're adding to it right here. We just went in here. We came out here. Is everybody with me?
Yep.
Yep.
So you know those two threads that we have on this spine? Think of it this way, 6 o'clock. This is 6 o'clock because, you know, 12, 3, 6, 9. This is still 3 o'clock. We're on the outside of the signatures. Same thing. Under 3 o'clock. See the loop that it made? Can you see that against my finger?
Yep.
You're going to go back down under to 6 o'clock. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a knot on these two with that the second signature attached to the first. So just like we did, but now we're working 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, right? It's going to make a loop. You go in the loop and pull the tension, just like that. Does that make sense? No? You're ugly? No! You're going to have my cats freaking out here in a minute. Watch. Murder Kitty's going to come up in here going, what the hell was that?
Yeah, she'd like you to know that she has not been fed in the last 3 days.
Mhm.
Oh, of course. You know, it's Armageddon. She's going to eat your face. It's Pele. Yes, Charmaine, it is Pele. See, she knows my Murder Kitty. Now, when everybody gets the 2 knots in the second hole for the second signature, let me know. I got 1 thumbs up. I got 2 thumbs up. Tres, 4. 1 more.
Go ahead.
I'm not leaving without you. We don't get behind.
Okay.
All right. So now you have a double knot here on this signature attaching the second signature to the first signature. Okay. What you're going to do now, it's real easy. I'm going to go back through the second signature center like this, because you got a knot on the other side that's going to keep it together. Pull your tension, go back through the center hole like so. Here. Same thing. 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Under both threads of 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, it makes a loop. Come back down through the loop, lose your needle, make your knot. Good thing I got my glasses on, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see that stuff at all. So now you have this first signature, you have the second signature, you have it knotted here. We just made our first knot here. We're going to do the second knot. So 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 6 o'clock, make the loop, down through the loop, pull the tension, and it makes the second knot right on top of the first knot here. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have to use the little girls' room. So can we take like a 5-minute break so everybody can go do their thing and we come back and we'll do the rest of it?
Sure.
Yep.
Excellent. That will actually give you that structure, the structure that you're talking, like with the fabric versus the board, the cardboard, or with the cardstock. So remind me after we get off of here. Stupid easy. You just lay it flat and you put it's a 2-to-1 glue ratio with water, and you brush it on and you just let it dry, and then you brush another layer on and you let it dry. So remind me, but there is a way of doing that.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else got any questions before we get started again?
Hear anything?
Nope.
So everybody ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we last left our heroes, they were on the outside of the second signature at the center after having put the knots here. So now that the knots have been laid, what we're going to do is we're going to go back through that center hole to the interior of the second signature. You with me?
Uh-huh.
See, I love the thumbs up. I can see it. Okay, and then we're going to go back through the next hole going up here. Ow.
I swear, I just fed her. Honest to God, I did.
It's Armageddon. She's going to eat your face when you go to sleep. That's how that works.
She wants
Okay.
that food, I think.
Everything we did beforehand, first signature, second signature, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Under the 3 o'clock, make sure you get both threads like so. As you can see, I'm running out of thread, so I'm going to fix to show you how to add thread for the next batch. So again, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, makes a loop, through the loop, and I lost my needle because we're getting toward the end. Pull it taut. Okay, now, as you can see, I'm running out of thread, right?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pull another thing of thread, again, no bigger than your outstretched hand to your chin. You've already knotted this first one. I lost my needle. Go ahead and rethread your needle with the new thread. And like I said, this is called the lead, piece at the half. This is the tail. This would be the part that you would normally knot if you were doing embroidery. It's the longer piece, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have it. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the inside, right here. You're going to go under that last thread that you made. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to make a knot. And I did this backwards for me, so I'm going to do it this way. You're going to hold and leave your 3-inch tail, and you're going to make a knot on the existing thread like so. And I pulled a lot more than I should have, but you're going to end up with a tail on the inside of your spine. Okay. And you do the same thing again. You basically, what I do is once I have the first one, I take this one, make a big loop, I pull it through. So now it's not, this new thread is knotted to your old thread. You have a tail on the inside, but don't worry about that right now. Okay. Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
Y'all are getting so good at that thumbs up. Okay. So now you're going to cut down this tail to about 2 inches, like so. You'll use a lot of thread doing this, but don't be concerned about it. It's better to use extra threads like that and be able to trim them later than cut it too close and it pull through the paper. Okay, so 2 inches is your minimum. I usually do mine between 2 and 3 when I'm leaving a tail somewhere. Okay,
Okay.
So we're on the inside, right here.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go back through that second signature hole to the outside. Notice this is our original tail. I'll lay it flat so y'all can see it. This is our original tail that we left for the first thread. This is our new thread. So basically all you're doing is you're going to knot together. And you make a knot, however, I like square knots. That's just me. But you knot it so that it takes up the tension. And now this is your new thread like this was. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mhm.
If you have to do this on the inside, you can. I personally like making the majority of my knots on the inside because nobody's going to see them. And when you get ready to do the spine, it makes it easier if you don't have a lot of bubbles or like knots, like, you know, something that's going to make it not smooth. Okay. So that's that one. This is our previous thread from the other one. Cut it to about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. You don't want it to get in the way of what you're fixing to do. Okay. And everybody let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead.
All right. We made the knot here. We're going to go back in that knot from the outside to the inside. And the cool part is, if you have a sharp needle, it'll basically make a hole for you depending on how thick the paper is that you're working. So if you don't hit that first hole exact, don't stress out. The most important thing is to make sure that this top and bottom are lined up. Okay. So I just pushed that through and you can't really see it, but it didn't quite come out in the same spot that the knot was originally in. It's not a big deal. As long as it's in the crease, it's fine. You're going to end up with uneven edges here, but this really is the most important part, that all these spines of all the signatures are lined up. Okay. So we come back through because we've already made our knot on the other side. We go back down through this signature from the inside to the outside, just like this. Same thing again. 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Let me do it this way. 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Under 3 o'clock, well, snap. Whoa. Okay. Under 3 o'clock, makes a loop, through the loop, hold the tension. Just like that. I'm going to do it again. Under 3 o'clock, loop, pull the tension. Now you've added your first signature to the original signature, just like that. Guess what we're fixing to do? Guess.
Flip it.
Flip it. That's right. Flip it back to where you have it on the right side original. Next signature. Make sure it lines up. This one does. You're going to do the same exact thing. You're going to go through. Ooh, hello. Like so. Go back through the second one. Oh, good grief. Back through. So you have pulled this through. Now, This one's a little different because it's adding the next signature. It's not going to have a 6 o'clock. It's going to have a 9 o'clock. So every other one that you do is going to be 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock when you start it. Now, this one's 9 o'clock because that's the first one that we added to the third signature. You with me? And the first signature had 2 threads. Then we went to the second signature, had the 1 thread. Now we're to the third signature. We're back to here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So this one, you're going to do just like you did the first signature. You're going to go underneath 9 o'clock. Leaves a loop, down through loop. Pull the tension. Okay. I'm going to do it again. 9 o'clock, under 9 o'clock. Makes a loop. Through loop. See how it makes that little knot that's going to be right here? It's going to be right on top of the other one. And gently pull the tension. Okay?
Okay.
Now, every other signature is going to be what we're doing here. The first signature, like the even signatures, are going to be like we did. So even signatures are going to be 6 o'clock. Odd signatures are going to be 9 o'clock because the threads are already there. So in this particular case, we've done this one. We're going to go back through to the front. And you can kind of see where this is going. Right here. Same thing. 6 o'clock. This is our thread from the other one when we stopped it, when we put our new thread in. So don't worry about it. Under 3 o'clock. Outside's going to pretty much be always under 3 o'clock. The insides will either be under 6 o'clock or they'll be under, they'll be under 3 o'clock or they'll be under 9 o'clock. So you have the 2 horizontals and you have the 2 verticals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, we're under 3 o'clock. It made a loop. In the loop, pull the tension. Now, usually when you do this, it'll usually pull that tail in that first time if you get to a place where you had to stop one thread and start the other. If after you finish, you still have a lot of these little jangly bits, be very careful and leave about a 1/2 inch and cut them close. Okay? That way, whenever you put your spine on or you put the other parts on, they don't get in the way. So we've made the 1 knot. We're going to do another one. So again, under 3 o'clock, through the loop, just like that. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back through, and this is a perfect example. There we go. Back through the hole, right here. And then you're going to go through the center. Pull the tension. And then we are back to 3 o'clock, under 3 o'clock, through the loop, and we joined that one to the next signature. And we're going to do it again. So everything should have 2 knots. The first one's to set it. The second one is to make it permanent. And the reason your odds and your evens are a little different is so that all the knots don't end up in one spot. If you're doing it and you see the knots start being in the same spot, just go to the opposite side to make the knots so they're not all in the same spot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sorta-ish.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we've made that knot twice. This is the other reason I like even numbers. Go back through. Go through the next hole in the spine in the signatures. Come out. Again, this is 3 o'clock. under 3 o'clock, make the loop, back. Do it again. Basically, the first one is the start. I always do square knots only because it's easy to pull tension on square knots, and it's easy to make sure that you know exactly where you're at as far as when you're making your knot. So now this one's been done, and if you notice, we have a couple of knots here, but then we have a few knots on the interior of each signature so that they're not all in the same spot, so that whenever you put this together, you're not going to have to worry about that. Does that make sense? No? 23? I'm making sure because some of you have that look on your face like, what is she doing? She's crazy. All right. So now that we've gone in there and made the knot on the outside, and go back through, up through the final hole, under 3 o'clock, which is the second signature, through the loop, under 3 o'clock again, through the loop. And now we have 3 signatures together. Any questions? Reese, you're looking like, what is this crazy woman doing?
No, I'm it's not that I'm trying to follow. No, I don't have any bigger questions right now. No.
Okay, making sure. All right, so now that we've gotten to
Good.
the end of the line, what are we doing? Flip it. Flip it real good. All right. Now, mine is kind of loose because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I'm going to let y'all do this next one on your own. I'm pretty sure you can do it. I have faith in you. Oh, that's so special. Once you guys have done this a couple of times, you'll get in a rhythm of doing it. It's like muscle memory. You'll figure out, like, when you see it, most of the time there's not going to be a thread on the left, so you're always going to work on the right, or vice versa. If you're left-handed, you start from the left. And so it's going to be easy to tell whether or not you should be using 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Okay? I know we're running kind of long here, so I'm going to try to do my best to speed this up. Do we have any left-handers in here? Okay, just in case somebody takes, looks at this later, I'm going to do it from the left to the right so that you can see the difference. That way, for any of the southpaws that we have that might look at this after we do this class, they'll understand what direction and everything that's supposed to be going. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
All right, so we're gonna go from the outside to the inside. And then we're gonna go down next to it. And from here, we're gonna do 9 o'clock, underneath 9 o'clock, make a loop, back through, make a knot, same thing again, under 9 o'clock, make a loop, back through, make a knot. Once that's done, you go back through it. If you're not sure it's really connected, and you can make extra knots. Extra knots does not hurt anything. Like I said, as long as you don't end up with all the knots on one side or the other, you can put as many knots as you need to. Because you're doing heavy duty thread and you're not doing the jute yet, it's not going to matter. Okay, so under 9 o'clock, through the loop, under 9 o'clock, through the loop. And then you're going to do the same thing you did before, not mess up your papers, go through. When you get to this side, same thing, under 9 o'clock, through the loop, pull attention. Make sure when you do get it, you get both threads under 9 o'clock, pull the tension. Then you're going to go back through it again. If you're not comfortable with your knots being secure, you can put a knot on this side. Then you go back through the spine of the last signature. Same thing. 9 o'clock, through the loop. Nine o'clock. Back through the spine to the back. Again, you're not comfortable, make extra knots on the back. And then through the spine, 9 o'clock. If you're not too blind and you can see the two threads you're supposed to be picking up. Through the loop, 9 o'clock, through the loop. Then on your last signature, you do the same thing. You're going to go from the outside to the inside, 9 o'clock, through the loop, 9 o'clock, through the loop. Make sense? So everybody got all 4 signatures together like this? Excellent. All right, so I'm going to trim this now. Put that to the side because we're going to need it in a second. These two have been knotted, so I'm going to take those off. So notice I did it about 1/2 inch so they're not in the way. And I have not cut these yet. If you look through the individual sets, you'll see, you know, the tails from the other ones. When you get the book together on the end, like once you get the book together, you can go to the inside and cut these, or you can cut these right before you put the spine on. Okay, it's totally up to you. Now, this is not a very wide book right here. So I'm just going to try to show you. This is your set of knots here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. This is considered the spine of your book. Just like, you know, when you look at the other books. I'll put this here. If you look close, you can see a spine here, a spine here, a spine here, so on and so forth. That's the jute that we're about to use. Now, also, if you're going to put a bookmark in your book, now is the time to do it. What you're going to want to do is you cut you a piece of ribbon, however long. We're going to pretend this is the ribbon. You're going to cut it at least the length of your book plus 4 inches. And the reason being is because you're going to put it where you want it in your signature, like so. I'm going to leave a little tail at the bottom. And then the piece of ribbon that you use is going to go glued on the outside of the spine before you put the outside on. That way, whenever you open your book, you can put your ribbon wherever you need it, but it's not going to come out. Okay?
Yep.
Probably should have brought some in here. I did not. I failed as a teacher. Okay. So now we've got the spine of the book. What you're going to do now is you're going to get your paper, or your jute, I should say, and you're going to cut. You need 2 pieces. You don't have to put an important spine here. The important spine is here and here on the top edge and the bottom edge. The rest of them, you're going to have a spine there, but you're going to just glue them. Okay. And this is a really thin book, so we really don't even need to do this, but I'm going to show you how to do it so that you understand what I'm talking about. What this does is it binds the top edge and the bottom edge of the book. Since we don't have any holes here, this is how you keep the book together. Okay. So what I would do with this is I would take this. There it is. I would take my thread. I would make sure that I was in between on each one of these signatures. I would push it up. And then I would basically sew this spine to each one of these signatures. So you're going to go from the inside, you're going to saddle it. I'm going to try to show you how to do this without having my bookbinding thing, but go back out the same hole. Saddling it there. And then from here, you're going to go back out. And if you notice here, here's the first signature, here's the fold in the second signature. Can you see that right there? So when you saddle this, it holds this in place. Then we're going to go through the next signature. Notice I'm on the top of it. And then you make a smaller hole right here, making sure that you straddle that piece of jute. Okay. So basically what you're doing is you're sewing that piece of jute to each signature. And you're going to do it a lot more even than what I'm doing it right now, because right now it looks like crap. So that was the second one. So now we're going to go to the third one. And if you notice 1, 2, 3, oops, 1, 2, 3. You're going to go through the third signature. And go under. Making sure not to and I don't know if you can see that, but if you look, I've sewn it to each individual one. This is the third one. You go from the top to the bottom, so you're straddling that jute. And if you're not sure you got it right, every time you straddle it, if you want to take the loop next to it and make a knot so it stays taut, you can do that. Okay. And then that's number 3. So now we're doing number 4. And again, small books like this, you don't have to do this. Big books, you have to do it. So if you do anything more than, say, 30, 40, 50, 60 pages, you're going to want to do this because you're going to have to give it some type of structure so that you can put the leather or the fabric on it. All right, so all right, so now I have put this to all 4 signatures. You knot it, obviously, to keep it in place. And what this does, this makes the ridge on the spine that you see in those big tomes and all the big books and stuff. This is how they attach the front and the back of the cover, is these. And what's going to happen is you're going to do this here, you're going to do this here, probably in the middle once. Depends on how you like it. I don't like odd numbers, so I do even numbers. So I do 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. But then once this is done, you can take this jute and you can unravel it. And what that does is when you put the book cover on, the book cover goes here and you glue this to the book cover. Okay, so if you were doing a big book like what I did, you drill a hole in the book cover and this would go through that hole onto the inside, and then you would just glue it together. Now, if you're doing a paper cover, and I'm just going to use this cardstock to show you, you're going to do 2 things. The first thing you're going to do with the cardstock, get the measurement for your book, and we're going to pretend that this is it. You're going to want a 1/2 inch edge covering your book. So for instance, you would want a 1/2 inch up here, a 1/2 inch here, and then a 1/2 inch here. This is going to be flush with a spine edge. Okay. And then once you've measured that and cut it out, which I'm going to eyeball and pretend that I know what I'm doing. We're going to do it like this. So 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here. And like I said, I'm eyeballing. You're going to cut 2 book covers, one for the back side, one for the front side. Once you've cut the one, you can use it to cut the back. Now, if you happen to be doing a leather piece to go on both sides of it. In other words, one entire piece rather than two pieces, okay? What you would do in that instance is you would take and measure the width of your book, however wide it's going to be. You add the front plus ½ an inch, the length, well, actually, you would add 1 inch here, and you'd add 1 inch here, because what you're going to do is you're going to divide it between the two so that it ends up being in the middle, right? And then you add that measurement to what the width of the spine is, however big it's going to be. And what that does is that allows you to cut it in one solid piece to go on the outside rather than the front and the back. Okay? Now, once you do that, you would take your handy dandy glue, and you're going to take your front and your back, and you're going to glue the piss, and I said piss, out of it, and you're going to lay your back sheet on it, like so. Make sure it's glued well. Do the same thing to the front. And then from there, if this is your outside cover, you're going to leave it like that. And then you find an interior cover that you like. You measure it like this, front and back. And this is not quite big enough, but those open pages, you measure it to that. And the ½ inch that it hangs over. And then you glue that. I would glue this because this is now part of the back. This very last page and the very first page is going to be part of the front and the back cover. You're going to take this and you're going to cover that from stem to stern, and you're going to glue it down completely, just like that, so that it's one piece. And then once that's done, when you fold it, at this point, you would get a piece that's this width, and you would glue it here on top of it. So that joins your front and the back. If you've
Piece
got
of cardstock or a piece of the paper?
no, this is the exterior, not the interior.
Oh, okay.
The exterior, you have to measure the width of the spine plus the front, add 1 inch because you're centering it at ½ an inch. ½ an inch is your magic number, so that, and I eyeballed this, so don't quote me on it. You have a ½ inch hangs here, ½ inch hangs here, ½ inch hangs here, and it's flush with the spine.
Yeah.
Like this.
Okay.
So the exterior outside of the book, if you're doing a leather piece to go on it, you would take that leather piece and you would measure this, that, and that.
Okay.
All of it together, adding enough that you can fold the exterior over the interior. So for instance, in this one, I don't know if you can see that right there. I actually used a separate piece for the spine because it's a little bitty book, right? And on the interior, here's the cardstock. I folded the exterior around the interior.
Okay.
On the front and the back.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the reason you need the extra whenever you're measuring it, is so that you can fold it. Now here, I did not finish this. What this would happen now, I would take the extra stuff from this and I would match it up to where there wouldn't be any, you wouldn't see any seams. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you would put this on the interior and then when you folded it, obviously this would be,
Okay.
but then this exterior, and then you have a finished interior.
Right. Okay.
Like, it's easier for me to show you on something that actually has an interior and exterior. If you look at this, the exterior is the leather. I folded it over, and if you look, I'm trying to get it where you can see it, right here, you'll see where I put 3 bookmarks in here.
Uh-huh.
And they're here, but if you look right there, you can see where they're in the spine. And see where I folded this over? And you can't see it because once you're done with it, you can't really see it. But the jute that I used is glued on the inside here underneath this. So it went through this, I have a board here, MDF board that you get from Home Depot, like little thin stuff. That's what I used as the base board for this. And they come out here. This is the spine, this is the jute spine. It goes into a hole here, and then I splay it on the inside so that it doesn't, it's not bubbly, like it's not bumpy like on the outside, and then just glue it down. And I did this with a hard board, but you do the same thing if you're doing a small one. So like for this one, or nope, where'd it go? Ah. So this one, I didn't finish the inside so that you can see the like what you do. So you fold the outside in first, so the exterior needs to be put on first. And then whenever you get to that point, you decide what's going to be on the inside and you glue it on the first page in this, and that covers all your seams, so to speak, so that nobody sees your seams. But again, this is the personal space pass. If they don't have a personal space pass, then they don't need to be looking at your seams. And that is basically how you make a book. So this one turns into that one. So this is what it would look like if I put an exterior on it. I have not done the interior on this one intentionally. If you look right here, you'll see where the spine meets up.
Yeah.
This back side, I put the spine separate so that you could tell, like this is for educational purposes and it's just ugly. So that's how you put a spine on if you're doing it separate. If you want to do all one piece, you add this to this to this, add an inch on every side but the spine side, so that you have that. If you look right there, you can see you have a gap, you know, like the book cover overlaps a little bit from where the body of the book is, and that's just to protect your pages. So, and you can make that as big as you want. 1/2 inch is good. Some books have more. This is a 1/2 inch book. I will tell you that this book, I'm trying to get it where you can see it. So if you notice, all my pages are uneven. They have something that's called a book shave, and it's basically a razor, and they bind the book like that and they slice it across, and that's what makes that concave. Like if you look at a book from the side, you'll see that little, you know, it bulges out where the book part is. That's a book shave that does that, and they do it after they sew the spine together. So if you want to get that neurotic, you're more than welcome to, but I'm lazy and I'm not getting a book shave. So we've got an old Katinki book that's together. And if you look right here, I don't know if you can see it, see the whipples? That's from where the glue dried too much before I spread it out. If you're working with leather, you're going to have to use your bone or something with a smoothing item to smooth all those bubbles out of your leather. It's almost like if you would be putting tint on a window, you end up with those bubbles. You have to smooth those out while it's wet, just like you would if it was tint on a window. And I don't know any other analogy that makes sense from that, but you're doing the same thing. I didn't get mine done, but nobody's getting close enough to my Book of Shadows to be able to tell me I did it wrong. So that's the thing. Once you get the body of it together, you can take and you can glue on a extra leather piece that you've tooled and made fancy if you choose to. I've got
Breaking news, Mike.
Do what? Who said that? Potato?
I think it was Wanda's phone ringing, maybe.
But you can put the metal cornices on here. I think I got 14 of these for like $3. You can find them at like Hobby Lobby and Joann's and stuff. It protects the edges that you've done. I actually used leather paint for this and tooled it as well. I have a piece on the back that I haven't put on yet. But you can gussy your book up as much as you want to. If anybody's got any questions about like doing more intense, like if you want to do the leather tooling and add the leather tooling, or if there's a specific style of bookbinding that you want to do, the one that I showed you is a basic bookbinding. There are also Byzantine had specific bookbinding types. English had bookbinding types. If you wanted to get really neurotic with it, you could do the exact type of book knots that your time period did. I'm Viking. We didn't have these things, but anyway. Any questions?
Not
You
right
mentioned
for me.
You had mentioned about the fabric, stiffening the fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a matter of a layer of glue to stiffen it?
Okay, so if you're doing the fabric, what you would do, ooh, 4-leaf clovers came out of my book. Many 4-leaf clovers came out of the book. What you would do is pretend like this is your fabric,
Mhm.
okay? You would take your book and you would put it in something to where it's like this,
With the pages hanging down?
with the pages hanging down,
Okay.
and you can do that between 2 pieces of plywood, whatever works for you. And then you're going to do a 2-to-1, 2 parts glue, 1 part water ratio. And it's going to thin it out enough that you can actually brush it on with a paintbrush.
Right.
Get
Okay.
one of those wide flat brushes and brush it on this side like this.
Uh-huh.
Let it dry. Then you're going to do exactly the opposite. You're going to do this and have the pages up and brush both sides the same exact way. Let that dry.
Okay.
And you should be good to go. If one layer of one coat is not stiff enough for you, go with another coat.
Cool.
The
Okay.
only thing you have to worry about, because this glue is washable, is getting wet.
I don't usually wash my book, so I think I'm good.
Well, as long as it's not raining when you have your book out, you're fine. But if it happens to be where you're in a place that, you know, like if you're outside and you're writing in it, it starts raining, don't leave it outside. You might have to redo it. You might end up with glued pages together. It happens. But that's basically it. And I know it sounded like really complicated when we were doing it because there's a lot of many steps to it. But once you've done it a couple of times, you don't even think about it. You just do it. The most monotonous part is tying the knots and folding everything and cutting the chads off. And once you get past that, you're great. One of these days, I'm going to make a paper making class, but it's not today. So put tea on your paper. Don't forget your baking soda if you're going to use tea or coffee because it's acidic. Your iron is your best friend because it makes your pages nice and straight and flat whenever you're starting to sew them together, especially after you've stained them. You can also, which is something that I did, and again, this is just an option, you can put essential oils in your tea or your coffee, like lavender or sandalwood or something like that. They will scent your pages, and like every time I open my book, you can smell lavender, you know, or sandalwood, depending on which pages I did. You can do something like that. You can, you know, make your own potpourri to put in there if you want to. Your bookmarks don't necessarily have to be like a cheap ribbon. You can do tablet weaving or Inkaloom and do it as long as it's small enough. You don't want anything that's going to stick out so far that it's going to be past your spine.
Right.
Okay, so that's the rule of thumb. As long as it's not past that piece of jute that you put on there to connect your front and back, doesn't matter what you put. You can personalize it that way. You can do whatever you want to. The leather's the same thing. You can go upholstery weight. You can go pleather weight. If you don't even want to do that type of leather, if you want to do paper and then put leather on top of it, you can totally do that. Sky's the limit, really, as far as the type of books that you really want to do. It's just, it depends on how much gumption you want to put into it. So, any questions?
Not at this time, but if you would, text me in our chat that we started, your email, so that if anybody does have questions, they can email you.
Let me do
and
this right
pass that
here.
along. Sure. Yep, there you go. Put it there.
That is my email. On Facebook, I am Wendy Breland. Ooh, he's gonna kill me if I spell that wrong. If you want to send me a friend request, hey, look, I took your bookbinding class. I need some help. Whatever. Just let me know who you are when you send me a friend request, and we can go from there. And if we have to do an additional one-on-one FaceTime so you guys can get a specific part that you didn't get before, please feel free to contact me. I'm pretty available until August the 8th, and I'll be back in school then. So, you know, and if you see me at an event, go, hey, I'll be all about that too. I'm all about hands-on. So please don't be afraid to get in touch with me if you need any extra help, or if I didn't cover something enough that it made sense so that you could do it.
Excellent. Olrun, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is
Absolutely.
great. This was good, and I'll be in touch. Don't let me forget. Get in touch with me about the measuring class you talked about, and everything.
Yes.
So maybe we can pop in folks that want to join that.
Absolutely. And if you're wondering what Flanette is talking about, I do a proper measurement technique, like how to take measurements and then take those measurements and put them on paper so you can make a pattern that fits you. And then we go further and do like tunics, basic tunics, how to put gores in, gussets, the whole 9 yards. And then an embroidery class after that to embellish everything and make it bougie. So I will be getting in touch with her. If you've got any questions in the meantime, let me know. Our ANS officer here locally will be doing that class, and we can do it via Zoom. We're going to be doing it via Zoom anyway. So pretty much anybody can tune into it and do a hands-on kind of thing.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now make all the books, like make all the stuff.
Got to finish it. Yep.
That's my son coming in, if you're wondering. And Loki, my cat Loki. He's the big mama hen.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, absolutely. If any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. And hopefully soon, knock on wood, if we can get this COVID behind us to a manageable level, then we should be able to be visiting in person. And you know, seeing it in person might be a little bit different, but anything that helps you go further and, you know, get your geek on, I'm all about it.
Awesome. Thanks again. Well, Stan, thanks for hosting.